everybody, and welcome back to a new coloring adventure here at CLAldridge Art. Today I will be working in my own book. It is the best of CLAldridge Art, or CLAldridge mandalas. This book, along with all of my other books, are available in print at Amazon or as PDF instant downloads through my Etsy shop. There is one other book. It is Dragons, Flowers, and Mandalas. Oh my. It is available also. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, for those of you who might not know who I am, my name is Christine Aldridge. I am an artist. I do draw coloring books, mostly. And I, of course, do a fair amount of coloring. Some of you may have been following me in a recent project that I'm doing in one of Jane Hankins' books, Jane F. Hankins, and using Derwent Inktense. So as I was looking at, so let me get rid of all of that. As I was looking at some other work today, I was actually looking at Chris Cheng's channel, she is absolutely brilliant with, well, of course she draws as well, but with Prismacolor pencils. So I was studying her, but as I was doing that, I was thinking about this particular coloring here on the front of this book. Now, I realize that the camera washes out the depth of the color on this for you. This is actually a much more vibrant color. It is also digital coloring. Now, this was done by a lady who is sadly no longer with us. Her name was Jody Savage, and this was the only thing that she ever colored of mine that I know of. I know that she had my books, but it's the only one that she ever sent to me. And I used it, of course, on the front of this book. But I was curious as to whether or not I could duplicate this look with my Inktense. And the first problem that I ran into is in the Inktense set. Since Inktense by Derwent is primarily, well, it's pigment. It's ink pigment. But I don't have a blue that is that light. So as I was thinking about that, I thought about my CalArt markers, because there is a light blue in there. So what I did was, and I didn't make you watch this part because, quite frankly, it was pretty boring, but I pulled the lightest pastel shades of the blue, the green, the sort of yellow, the pink, the orange, and a purple, which is, you can't hardly see it, but it's up here under the word mandalas. And I base coated everything in this drawing. So, as you can see, it bled through, but that's what these are for, is to catch that. And now I thought that I would try and add that shading using my Inktense, which is a much more intense color. And so if you'd like to see how I do, stick around and watch, and I'll get started. I do want to say a great big thank you to all of my subscribers for subscribing to my channel, and to those of you who may be new and would like to, please do hit the subscribe and like button. And if you hit the ring the bell for notifications, you'll be notified anytime I upload a new video. I do a live show every Sunday, and I try to do at least one and possibly two shows or videos throughout the week of different coloring, different art, different mediums and things like that. I have Inktense is the primary medium that I use, and I've colored some really beautiful things with it. The most recent of the projects that I've done in this book with Inktense is this, and we did this just the other day. Just the other day, sometime last month, I think. May. Okay, so yeah, May, because I believe it's the 30th of June, so it still qualifies as last month. Although perhaps by the time you see this, it'll already be July 1st, in which case, happy July. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select a color. Now I could go with the iris blue, which is a true sort of blue, but I kind of like the sea blue, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and use that. That's the iris blue. Probably had the sea blue in my hand. Yep, I surely did. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and give that a shot. Now, one of the things that I really love about digital coloring is it's the programs have gotten so very good that the shading is very subtle. By the way, this is my cat's paw. There's a cat attached to it. It's not just a cat's paw. There's a tail and a head and a body and all of that. She usually is sitting right over there to my right hand, or trying to get into the middle of the action. So she may yet show herself to you. Her name is Coriander, and she is just a little character. Okay, what I'm trying to do here is zoom you down so that you actually have a chance of seeing what I'm doing. See if I can't get you into a halfway decent focus there. Oh, almost had it. All right, well, that I think is pretty close. And I'll probably tweak it once or twice before we're done here. All right, so I am going to start out just super lightly and on just one side. And I'm not using an awful lot of pigment. And of course, the reason why I don't want to use a lot of pigment is because Inktense is very intense. And so like right there, I'm just going to put a little dab in there because that's really all I need. And the idea here is subtle, and so you want to be subtle with it. And I'm just sort of trying to feel out the contours of where this little petal is. Now, of course, CalArts are alcohol markers, and you could use water-based markers for this, but the thing you need to understand is that since Inktense is also a water-based medium, the chances are pretty good that you're going to move your water-based marker, move the color around, and it might turn out splotchy. And so it's one of the reasons why I like using alcohol marker if I am going to base coat an Inktense piece. And that way the ink in the alcohol marker stays put. Now, the thing about Inktense is that once it's down and dry, it's permanent. So even though it is a water ink, a water-based ink, it won't move on you once you activated it, and that makes it ideal for layering color. And that was a demonstration that I did on Sunday's live stream. And we did it in reds, and it was beautiful. And I could actually, let me grab this down, see if I can get it off a stack without, this is what we're working on. we're working on trying to get this particular depth of color, and this of course has several layers on it. So if you follow my channel at all, you saw this on Sunday, and I've been working on it now for about 2 or 3 videos. Thought I needed a change. I wanted to do something different. So let's see what we can, how it comes out with this. And I just like to give you tips and techniques on different ways that you can use your mediums. Now you see how intense the color is on this, right? It's just amazing how little Inktense you actually need to get an amazing result. Now, this is Amazon paper, so it is going to darken up on me as I get it wet, but it will lighten up again as it dries. So one of the keys is to wet the lighter part first, and I didn't do that in that first part. Then go into your darker parts with your ink, then tap off, and then blend it. Now that gives the ink a sort of a chance to settle in. If it ends up just a little bit splotchy, you can always fix that with a second layer. But I think it's going to come out just fine. You can also do like this. Just go in one direction, and you can really preserve a lot of the light. Now, a water brush by its very nature it isn't, they're not stiff, and they shouldn't be stiff. If you've got a stiff water brush, then you need to get a different water brush, because they absolutely should not be stiff, and they should not pill your paper. I do have a fairly light touch with it to begin with, but the brush itself should not damage the paper. But you do want to make sure that you're not going over it so many times that you are peeling the paper back, because that is the trick to working with a water medium on a less expensive or a because Amazon books are on 60-pound bright white paper. So that is, it's not bad. It's medium weight. And it's not bad paper at all. Now there are some plants early on that that Amazon had contracted with that were not using the right paper, but for the most part they are doing it now. I don't know how that's going to look until it's dry, so I'm going to move on to the next one. But see how it changes the entire look of that? So I'm just going to, and it could also be that the sea blue is maybe a little step too dark for this. I'm already making excuses. Stop making excuses, Christine, and make it work. So I'm just very lightly going in to the bottom here, pretty much just using the weight of the pencil to determine how much pigment is going down, because this is so very strong. See, it doesn't take very much to get a good bang for your buck. And a good set of Inktense will last you a lifetime. I use mine all the time, and I have still never sharpened them all. I've sharpened most of them once, and I've had them for almost 2 years. Because they're hard and they're ink. So because they're ink, when anything that you sharpen, you're like throwing away pure pigment. So I just hold off sharpening them until I just absolutely can hardly use them. And then I sharpen one. So we'll see how these two, see how this is notably lightening up a little, as it's drying. You can still tell how wet it is by seeing how much of the gray you can still see on the other side. So that's just water. So we'll do a couple more of these, and then I'll show you the green leaves. So once again, I'm just going to maybe I'll just go on one side. It doesn't have to be both sides. Maybe this one is a little more this way. The thing is just, you can change up your petals, make them a little more visually interesting. And this is really something that I learned by watching pencil artists like Chris Chang or like Sammy at Color and Chat with Sammy, or Lori at Color My World, or Rachel at Pencil Stash. All of these channels and many, many others. I don't, I certainly am not slighting anybody by leaving them out. Dee Dee Willingham, for instance. Everything doesn't have to be the same. So maybe there's a little shadow going on over here, or a little wrinkle, or or there's, maybe there's a like the sun is reflecting the dragonfly's head right there. It doesn't all have to be the same. Now, I would hesitate to ever recommend that anybody do that sort of back and forth motion. I wanted to try it just to see. Also, don't worry if you go a little bit outside the lines. I'm going to add a background to this, so I'm going to be able to scare all that, any little boo-boos. I'm going to be able to scare those away. Now, it looks like it's all coming out the same color, but it's really not. If you do end up with a little bit too much pigment, just tap it off on a little piece of paper towel. This is just literally a little scrap that I have here of paper towel. I think I probably cleaned the cat's eyes. She gets those eye boogies, so I clean them for her. And then rip off the icky part from the paper towel. Okay, so just like that, we'll do one more. This little one up here. So I hope that everybody is doing okay, and that wherever you are, and whatever you are working on, that you're having a good week. I was watching Anne at A Colorful Life a little bit earlier, and she was showing a coloring book haul that she'd gotten from Book Outlet. She wasn't really happy with it, but there was one book that sort of stood out, and it was a Lydia Hess volume. And she's like, I had a Lydia Hess volume. And the one that she had ordered from Book Outlet was Sacred Angels. She says, but I can't remember what it was. You know, the one that she had before. She thought it looked familiar, but she was never really fond of the black lines in it. And, of course, I could answer that question for her because she sent it to me. And this is it. So she doesn't much care for these dark black lines, but I just love the art in this book so very much. So I could not resist. I went on to Book Outlet, and the Sacred Angels was only $3.07. So it's coming to live here. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I normally resist, you know, making impulse buys of any kind, mostly because, you know, artists can never afford anything. But at that price, I couldn't afford not to buy it. And they had over 100 in stock, so if you guys go over to Anne's channel and look at her latest coloring book haul, I think it even says, you know, she was disappointed in it. I'm going to use the felt green, which is this one right here, for the green leaves. So let me dig the felt green out. That is the hooker's green. And that was named for a gentleman named Hooker, who created the dye for that particular shade of green. So here we're going to go here like this. I'm going to come around the edge, sort of come up here, go around, and now you can, you know, I could add another layer of green if I wanted to, maybe a bluey green, like like maybe a teal. Yeah, how about we try a teal green as well, just to give it a little bit of interest up one side, maybe. Okay, so then I just want you guys to be free with your colors, to understand that it just doesn't, you know, especially if you're using Inktense, it doesn't all have to be one color. Now when that dries, we'll be able to see where all those different colors are. See how now that this one is a little more dry, it is, it's a much more subtle and pleasant, but still variegated, you know, still shaded, and just not so much random shading as unpredictable, just like a flower petal would be. There is beautiful symmetry in nature, but it isn't perfect. And, you know, because there are shadows and all that kind of good stuff. So maybe I'll add just a little bit of green there, and maybe just a tiny bit of the teal, and maybe just a little bit of it in here. Kind of out here. Down here at the bottom of these little ones. Just almost barely touching them. Just in the very bottom of the leaf. And then, when you go over them, see, I'm just going to tap, because I want that green to stay down there at the bottom. So I'm just using this tiny little tapping motion that taps in the color, lets it soak into the page, but doesn't necessarily sweep it around the entire leaf. And if you do find that you swept a little too much color up, you can brush a little of it back. Probably won't completely go, but that's why if you use less pigment to begin with, you don't end up overdoing it. I talk about that a lot, that the biggest mistake that most of us make, and I certainly did when I started as well, is that we want to use too much pigment. So you just have to think in light layers. Because you can layer all day long with Inktense. The key is you have to let it dry, in between the layers. Oh, see how that little bit of teal blue sort of adds a little visual interest there? Once again, just sort of tapping it in, leaving that center a little bit bright. And then as I move around the page, you can add, you'll find that, like, I'll be adding some darks, some even darker greens in, to sort of add some contrast to the, sorry, I got lost there for a second. Add some contrast to the leaves, to the larger leaves. So maybe I'll just go along the sides on this one and leave that top part. You don't all have to have any blue. So, I could just leave the blue out, or the teal out, or I could just add a little bit of it maybe right there. And also the color variation breaks it up a little bit, but still lets the eye lead you out to the end of the flower. And I did put the sort of yellow in the, or the light green in the centers of all of these. So I could just add a tiny bit of the darker green, just in a little semicircle. Maybe half of it. down in here, and that helps to give it a little bit of dimension. So we'll know more about that when it's dry, and I'll be right back and we'll see. Okay, it is dry now, and I'm thinking I need a little bit darker color. So I want to stick with that. I want to stick with the dark green. So maybe the beach. I could go to the Ionian, which is really dark. The beach green is a step lighter or darker than the felt. You know what? I am going to go to the Ionian. I just like to say Ionian. Ionian green. So I'm going to come down, and I'm going to come down in here and up in there. And only at the ends, all right? I'm also going to use it just a little bit around up in here. See, you can even put it over something that is already there. Makes a light color. Excuse me. Okay, let's try that. We'll move on. We'll do a little bit more, and we'll see how it's coming out. Whoops. Okay, through the magic of I moved the camera, you now have a little closer view. I am not happy with how that is turning out. So I am going to go back to my felt green, and I am going to fill in that little space right there because I don't like it. And I don't really have to activate it or do anything else. Now I'm going to go back to my dark Ionian green. And I am just going to come in on one side. And see if I can fix this, or if I just need to move on to the next one to see if I can get the technique right. It's part of the problem is that the paper is still wet, and so it is it's biting me a little bit. It wants to go splotchy on me, which is what happens if you don't wait long enough between your layers. But I think we'll just move on to another one and see if I can't get it a little bit better. Could be I need to tweak the colors that I'm trying to do it with. Okay, so this is the felt green. I also want it in here. And the Ionian green, which is the darker, in here in the center. coming out from there. Okay, a little felt green. I'm doing something wrong and I just can't figure out what it is. Because I'm not getting the look that I want. Darker. Okay. And it could very easily be, because this is a technique that worked well on Jane's paper, which is 80-pound professional grade heavy duty cardstock. Actually, that's a little bit better. Okay. Maybe I was trying to layer it and I should have been putting all the colors on at the same time. Which actually gives it a chance to blend a little more smoothly. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. I like that just a little bit better. Am I too close? Am I too zoomed? Am I out of focus? Whoops. Okay. See, even we artists don't always get it right first try. Sometimes you just have to keep trying. Of course, we're all artists. Any of us who take on the hobby of coloring. I just happen to be a artist who draws the coloring books, but other people color them better than me. Okay, this is the Ionian green. Okay, come around there. Leave that nice bright spot on that leaf. Let's see how we do. Yeah, you see how this paper just really soaks. Soaks in the ink. Now, if you have trouble with this, or if you want to use your Inktense for this, you can also do it with colored pencil, of course. And you could do the CLAart marker base first, the Inktense on top of it, and then do your final bit of shading with your pencils if you want. We'll see how we end up with this. I think that I may end up doing just that because, although you never know, because it's because you get a sharper a sharper edge, or not a sharper edge, but you can, like, when you, like, I'm going to darken that up, right? And I'm going to darken this up. And we're going to see, I'm going to darken this up, so that just the areas of the petals that represent the folds, right? And now I'm just being very careful. I'm barely touching it and not moving it. Whoops. Make sure I keep it up there where you can see it. But I want those edges soft. I don't want them harsh. Okay. So now we'll let that dry and see how that works. Okay, so the fern green back to the felt, or the felt green. And it could be that I should be using the fern green, but I think I can get by with this. So there's my felt green. Just want to leave a little bit of light in various spots. Okay, and a little bit of the dark green, which is the Ionian, in the darkest spot or the darkest recess of that. Also there. Okay, then my felt green again. Here. Along this top edge. Down here. Oh, that's not too bad. Okay. Down here in the shadow. Up here at the tip. And, okay, we already touched that. Okay. So my friend Virginia did this beautiful diamond painting for her son for Father's Day. And it was of this huge, you know, like 9-horned buck with, or, you know, 9-point buck, whatever. 18, what do they call it? 18, had 9 on each side. Anyway, oh, I like that one. All right, that one came out okay. See, I have the key is I have to be thinking about something else. And so she posed this picture, right, of the, you know, him proudly standing next to it. And it's very clear he's hung it in the garage. And so I quickly dashed her off a note that said, "Wait one cotton picking minute." I said, "You better tell me there's something special about that garage, or that boy's got some splaining to do as to why he hung that beautiful, beautiful diamond painting that you did in the garage." And as it turns out, that's where he spends all his time. And that's where his antler wall is, you know, that's got all of his prized antler horns that he's collected. And, you know, taxidermy and such things like that. So, yes, it is in fact a special place. But it made me laugh because, you know, I immediately jumped to the conclusion that he was, you know, disrespecting her gift. And that was wrong, of course. Not that it would be any of my business. All right, I also like the way that turned out. So, yes. So that is the key. The key is just adding that little bit more contrast and not quite layering so much as using all three colors together to blend and create a really seamless look. So I'm really pleased with the way that second one turned out. Let's continue on. Looks like I've already been yakking it up for 45 minutes, so I like to keep these right around an hour. Especially if I'm bringing you several videos in a week. That way, I am not taking up too much of your time. But this is my favorite part of the week, when I get to stop and stop doing what I'm doing and get to visit a little bit. It's a lot less stressful than all the worrying that I have been doing these days. Okay. So we'll just of course, I imagine that I am not alone. I did go back and read some of the chat from Sunday, and I know that there's some folks out there that are facing some health challenges, or people that they know and love who have been exposed to the virus and we are waiting on test results, and then of course I've had a dose of social media battles yesterday. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm liking the way. See how it just goes from sort of plain to cool? I like cool. Okay, sea blue. These are just little guys. Just adding literally just not very much at all. And I went over and watched a little Mrs. Coffee early this morning. It is currently, wow, how did it get to be 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning? Oh my goodness, really? I think it was around 2 that I was over at watching Mrs. Coffee unbox two diamond paintings from a company that she's never purchased from before. And she got an LED diamond painting. It actually comes pre-mounted on a frame or on a canvas, and then in the back it's got a place where you put batteries, and it lights up parts of the finished painting. And the packaging is fantastic, and the drills look really nice. And I have one diamond painting going right now that was a gift from one of my moderators, Melinda, and I love it, but I just have not had very much time to to devote to it. Although it's coming along. I give it a few minutes here and there. And I've only ever done one other one that I finished, but I haven't sent yet. I did that one for my friend Virginia. So, but I certainly like looking at them, and these looked really nice. I mean, she got two. One had the LED, and the other one did not. But it was framed, and all you do is you drill it. I mean, literally, it's already pre-stretched on a frame, so you pay a couple extra dollars for it. They're not, inexpensive. I think she said she paid $30 for one of them, and of course you have to do the calculation in your head because it's the company is apparently in Europe, and so, or in England, so it's British pounds. So it's, like 30 British pounds, whatever that is, US. I think that's a little bit more. Okay. So yeah, I'm liking this. Okay, so we've gone over how to do the leaves and how to do the petals. I don't know how people like Karen managed to do this in under an hour. Her videos are so good and yet so short. Okay, I'm going to pull some purples. I've got I want the deep violet. Oh, where's the deep violet? I want the deep violet, the mauve in my hand, the thistle, and the fuchsia. Love, love, love these colors. Oh, I did want to say, on Sunday I had a lady who asked me, well, I didn't see that she asked if I'd been tangling with a possum again. That's a long story. There's a video on it. But the answer is no. My skin is very thin, and so it has a tendency to get little broken blood vessels under it. I do apologize for that. Mostly what all of this is the cat will put a paw on my arm, and if I'm busy and I don't really pay attention to her, pretty soon it'll be a claw. And sadly, because my skin is thin, this is what happens when the cat puts a claw in me. So I apologize for. I apologize that I always look like I've been having fights with possums. It's not that you don't notice it so much in the wintertime when I can wear long sleeves. Okay, so this is the deep violet, and it is the darkest. So we are going to use it down here on our little guy, the little dragonfly. And then I'm going to probably choose the fuchsia for its foil. And then I'll probably choose the fuchsia up here. And maybe the thistle. Let's see, let's try the opposite here. I know that's probably not good that I would do that, but it's okay. Oops, sorry, I've got the deep violet again. That's the wrong color as well. Let's go with the fuchsia. And then up here, we'll try the mauve to the inside. Just a little bit. And the thistle for here, just to the, the darker areas. I don't know why you're coloring them like they're feathers, Christine. They're not feathers. And the fuchsia, just very lightly. Okay, and then I want, sorry, the mauve again. So I want the deep violet for down here. For the probably the back of his head. And then the mauve, which is slightly lighter. Which will go along the sides. And the thistle, no, the fuchsia. Yeah, the fuchsia. So I'll try the fuchsia. Just one tiny little stroke. Okay. So that should give plenty of color to our little guys starting out. Probably way too much. But that's okay. Remember what I said about our tendency is to use too much pigment, which is true. And I'm pretty sure that I just did it there. Dabbing off. Just treating each little cell separately. This also is going to be another one that we're not going to really know about until it is dry. Now, I will say that it looks somewhat different from my angle than it does from yours, in that I can see much more color variation than I believe is showing up on the camera. Hopefully, it'll show up for both of us once it's dry. And okay. All right, so now each one of these will have its own set of shading. So this is, and by the way, these are not the colors. What I'm trying to do here is duplicate what Jody did. Just because I think it was a beautiful color palette, and it is my way of saying, you know, happy anniversary, Jody. You know, we're sorry that we lost you. She passed away of the influenza, actually. Not, you know, not COVID, but influenza. The flu that we had that was so bad 2 years ago. So anyway, yeah. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So each one of these will be its own color. This one, obviously, the purples. This one, pinks. This one, yellows. And this one, oranges. And just like that, through the magic of editing and a little time, this is how it finally has come out. I have, as you can see, I have done the outer leaves. I used the same colors, the combination of the greens here, and then I also added, to add a little extra contrast, I added some Payne's Gray. And so I did that also in these flowers. And then I used some of the CLAldridges glitter gel pens to do the outline of them. And I really liked the way that that turned out. I also darkened up in various places the dragonfly, and I used the Payne's Gray to increase the contrast along one edge, and then added, in addition to the pink in the wings, I also used the white gel pen to just add a little sharp line right down the center of the body so that it looked a little more shiny. And I have done the same thing over here, only I used the chocolate brown for the dark contrast, along with all of the oranges that I used. But I wanted to show you just on the last little bit, both the Payne's Gray and the glitter gel on this particular one, just so that we have a sort of complete section with all of the bits shown in the video. So I am just adding a tiny bit of the Payne's Gray. You need to be very, very careful with this. It is a very intense color, and it goes a little tiny bit, goes a very long way. So I just want to darken the places, or add it a little bit in the places that would be especially dark. So, you know, where the light would not be hitting, coming out of the little ball that, you know, gives birth to these leaf and stems. So just a tiny bit there, maybe a tiny bit at the other end. I also did darken up with a little more of the Ionian green, these little tiny leaves. So now you can choose not to wet this. You don't have to wet it if you like the way it looks. There's no rule that says that you have to activate it with water. And so I'm not going to on those particular ones, although I did on these. And anyway, so, or I could, and just sort of show you, all I really did was just the tapping. I just wanted to make sure that it was wet. And then just sort of did the one stroke right down. Of course, misplaced, or the cat is laying on top of, more likely the cat is laying on top of my paper towel or dabbing. So just a very subtle little bit of additional color to just add that extra bit of shade. And just that little tiny bit of contrast. Okay, so now you probably won't be able to see this at all because glitter gel pen just does not show up on screen very well. But all I did with this was to outline the wings, and you do want to make sure that you plan how to do your glitter gel pen so that your hand isn't going to be on top of it even when you're coloring the rest of the page, because otherwise you're going to end up having to redo it because you will rub it off with your palm. So just, now you'll notice that at the angle that you're looking at it, you can barely see it. But it does seem to, see, it does take out those black lines, doesn't it? Kind of. Or at least it makes it, because look at, it actually looks much more floaty. Oh, yes, my dear. Welcome, Coriander. See, she could not let me make a video without at least making a token appearance. Isn't that right? Isn't that right, my little girl? She's just purring away. So just like that. And then I will do the same thing with the white gel pen. And once again, I always clean off the tips of my gel pens. And I find that if I do that, they are not, they don't stop up. I've never had one that has stopped up. Hello, little girl. Can I get to the white? Yes, thank you. I need to move the page so that I can get the right angle. She's such a good helper. So I just very lightly, and it doesn't matter if the line is a little broken, but you just come straight up the center, sort of feather it in a little bit, maybe a little bit on the back of the head, and that just gives that little bit of shine. Anyway, so I do hope that this gives you an idea of ways that you can use light and contrast to add dimension to your coloring, even if it's not layering with pencils. So I do love my Inktense, and this is another video complete. So until we meet again, hopefully you're coloring something pretty. I'd love it if it were in one of my books, but whatever book that you choose, this technique will work in. So until we meet again, from Little Coriander and myself, color something pretty. Bye, everybody.